NAU is coming. The SPP is already here. The secret meetings are going on. Bilderberg, actually the G20 is coming here in about, 2 months? End of June. And this is the ultimate irony and hypocrisy of the G20. They're trying to get economic freedom for every country in the world. However, every corporation that runs out of these countries has a sweatshop. Every one of them. Canada has a sweatshop. US has a sweatshop. Brazil, England, Italy, whoever's in the G20, I can't rack them off the top of my head. I actually looked and every country has a sweatshop, yet they want economic freedom for those countries. Hypocrisy right there.
Enlightened sovereignty.
Enlightened sovereignty, something like that. And with Harper, of course, the Bilderberger, wake up America, wake up Canada, wake up world, wherever this is being heard. Wake up. There's more than meets the eye.
Number 4, get some promises from city politicians, bureaucrats, city councilors, MPs, and so on before the G20. If you bug them a week before, they're going to say they're too busy. If you bug them well before, they might look at the information you have. And so get some promises from them that they'll look into it, or take their reactions, their official responses to the people of Toronto to see why they need to help you make a case if our politicians won't take action on this. But start that communication process early. And get an official comment from the city, the police, the army, the security forces, the people that are responsible for security at this G20 event. Get an official response from them just to show people you did your homework. You're not just a crazy guy on the outside who looks at what crazy people think. You're actually going to talk to these people and say, look, what's your worldview? What's your mindset on this?
Do you have any comments on the G20, this event, major event happening in June in Toronto?
First of all, I think economically it's great for the city. We're going to have a lot of people come through.
There's no doubt that there's lots of complications, there's lots of concerns, there's going to be lots of traffic issues, but at the end of the day, if we want to be a world-class city, and that's what we are, then we want to host great events to showcase what we've got to the world and show people that this really is a miracle by the lake and that they should come, they should visit, they'll be safe here, and they can discuss the great issues facing the world here.
I'm excited about the G20. It's great to bring the leaders from around the world to Toronto, show off our great city.
It'll be a little bit uncomfortable for everyone because of the security and because of the problems that might come out of demonstrations and that sort of thing. So I guess the only thing I'd say is be patient. It'll be over in no time, and I'm personally glad that they've chosen Toronto to be a place for the meeting. So I'm happy about it, but at the same time, I'd ask the residents and anyone that uses our streets just to be a bit patient.
And I know the Press for Truth's been all around Toronto covering the G20. What's been going on with your latest coverage of the G20?
A lot of people have seen the video from last week. We were down covering the financial district and to a lot of these areas just to get B-roll for our edit later. And I was subsequently asked for identification from a private security officer, which I refused to surrender on the basis that he's a private security officer and I'm on a public street. He then called the police on me, which I had nothing to hide from the cops. I told them what my name was. I told them why I was filming. I was acting completely peacefully in doing all of this and being completely cordial with them and calm. And I had an officer in a squad car ask me all of my information, to which I told him I wasn't comfortable with surrendering information to him on the basis that I was acting lawfully and within my rights. He drove off and said thank you and let me go, and then I was approached by 3 officers, 2 at first on foot on the street, that then requested that they gave me an ultimatum. Either I turn my camera off or I give them ID, and I refuse to do either of those because under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we have freedom of the press for one, so I don't have to turn my camera off on a public sidewalk for news gathering purposes. I do not need a permit to film on a public sidewalk. And then once they put me in handcuffs when I refused to surrender identification, then they searched my pockets illegally. They took out my identification of me and my friend, who wasn't even filming, so they put my friend in handcuffs under association, which is under the charter as well. They violated over half the charter, not telling us what our rights were, not telling us what we were being arrested for. I don't even think we were officially under arrest, and I paid for an arrest report to be sent to me. And under this bureaucratic system, it's going to take 30 days for me to even find out what they reported on. This is the true North strong and free, and I am strong and I am free, and I am not going to surrender any of my rights for the guarantee of security, especially for a group of private bankers that are going to be coming up for the G20. And I don't want this to happen to other filmmakers in the city and other truthers that are going out and trying to get information that the mainstream media should be covering, and they're not. When they originally put me in handcuffs, handcuffs, they told me that I was being arrested because I wouldn't surrender identification. And when I told them that, it's not a law that I have to surrender identification to the cop, we have the right to remain silent, and that rule literally means, and I should tell people out there, that I'm aware of a lot of these rules because my father's a retired police officer of 35 years. He was on the SWAT team. He's been a traffic cop. He's been a beat cop. He's been behind the desk. He retired as a superintendent. So he's experienced the full range of what the police are and are not allowed to do. And he helps write policy for the York Regional Police, or at least he did that as part of his job. And so, I know that you do not have to surrender identification to the police. If you're driving a vehicle and they pull you over, yes, you have to surrender identification because you need to show that you're able to drive a vehicle. If you're walking around in the streets, you do not need to surrender identification to the cops. It's a common misconception. Most people will surrender it just to be compliant with an authority figure, but it is by no means a requirement, and you're within your rights to deny him access to any information on your person, and you're within your rights to deny him an illegal search of your bags unless he has a reason to do that. And they wouldn't give me any reason why I was being arrested. They said I was being detained for investigation, and even under the Canadian Charter, any arrest or detention deserves a reason why you're being arrested or detained. And the overall reason they gave me it was because I wouldn't tell them who I was. They wanted to know who I was, and they were going to get the information whether they had to do it legally or illegally. And in this case, they chose to take the illegal path. If this type of stuff is going to happen, then I'm going to take a stance against it because I don't want to see this type of stuff happen. I want to be able to come down and film on a public sidewalk and take a shot of a random building that you can see from 40 miles away and not have to worry about some guy claiming that I'm doing pre-operative surveillance on their building. It's absolutely absurd to think that a man with a shoulder-mounted broadcast camera, a tripod that is over 4 feet long, strapped across his back, and an equipment bag, walking around with a rain cover on the bag is going to be doing operative surveillance or pre-operative surveillance on a building. It's more likely going to be a person with a cell phone camera, or, I can give the cops a little detective note here. It's most likely going to be a person on the internet looking at Google Street View, where you can see 360 degrees around you in HD quality. If they want to worry about a security breach, why don't they blame the ominous Orwellian Google van that drove all around the entire city, getting images of everybody and everywhere all over, mapping out our entire city and putting it out there for everybody to see.
It's important to get this info out, I think, right before this G20 we got coming up at the end of June. Is some of the reason why Press for Truth has been focusing on this because you're concerned about the agenda of the G20?
Absolutely. The G20 is all about globalizing the entire economy. That's why they call it the Global 20. It started off with the G7 back in the 1970s. That molded into the G8, which became a more powerful group, and now it's the G20. It's the 20 most powerful countries deciding on policy, specifically right now economic and monetary policy that they're trying to decide on for the entire world. They're trying to give more rules to the IMF to be able to go into countries and bail them out and give special loaning privileges to certain countries. They're trying to establish financial stability boards that have the ability to go into any country that's a member of the G20 and set financial policy. And the idea of sovereignty is that if you don't like the rules in a country, well, you're free to move away to another country. But if the rules are going to be the same all over the place, well, that's setting up a global feudal state where everybody is under a certain regimented system, and that's just never going to work because you're never going to get everybody on the same page. And you need people to be diverse. You need diversity of opinion, you need diversity of rules, and sovereignty does not cause wars. Wars are not caused by sovereign nations disagreeing with each other. These wars are being caused by people who stand to profit from doing all of this. So, the G20 is all about centralizing the power of the entire world's economy in the hands of a very few people, and most of these people are private bankers. And the fact that we're going down there and covering this is an attempt to give some of the information back to the people because knowledge is power.
We're going to be doing some exclusive coverage. I want to tell everybody out there to stay tuned to pressfortruth.ca for exclusive coverage of the G20.